morning, everyone. Thank you so much for attending the August Sea Pines Community Coffee. My name is Amanda Jones. I am the CSA Director of Communications. Before we begin, some quick housekeeping items. We are filming the meeting, so when you have a question, or if you have a question, we will take those questions at the end. Please remember to speak clearly into the microphone. Because we are filming the meeting, we do want those who actually watch the video later on to be able to hear the questions that are being asked from the live audience. This morning, please help yourself. In the back, we have pastries and coffees brought to you by Zebon. They are located down here in the shops at Sea Pines Center, so thank you for those folks coming out here this morning and providing those delicious treats for us. So we do have quite an agenda this morning. I will cover several items. Victoria Shanahan, our Director of Finance and Administration, will cover some items related to Hurricane Matthew expenses. She will also cover some information related to our enterprise-wide software process that we're going through right now. Russell Fredericks, our new Director of Maintenance, will cover some maintenance project updates. Toby McSwain will cover some safety and security related items, including an update on the recently installed post and chain down on Sea Pines Drive. You will hear from Steve Birdwell, who is the president of Sea Pines Resort. Mark Griffith, CSA Board Chairman, will also provide an update. We will take a 5-minute meeting break recess, and then we will re-adjourn for Q&A. Q&A, again, will also be captured on the video for us as well. So upcoming events, we have quite a few things happening. Our community coffee, our next one, is going to be held in this building on September 6th at 9 a.m. The ASPO board meeting is scheduled for September 21st. Please note that that meeting typically takes place at 9 a.m. It will happen at 4 p.m. So that is a change just for that meeting alone for the September session. The CSA board will meet on September 26th at 3 p.m. Our October community coffee is going to be held on October 4th. Similarly, that is an afternoon meeting. We typically do that for our session in October. That will be held from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. in this building. Meet your board candidates. You'll see some information talked about the upcoming board elections that will happen in the October and November timeframe. So the Meet the Board Candidates event will be held here on October 25th at 2 p.m. And again, as mentioned, all of those events are going to be held here at in the Sea Pines Community Center. So save your date, mark the calendars. We have some additional information about some upcoming events. Lots of people are always interested in our Sea Pines Community Yard Sale. That will be held on Saturday, October 21st from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m. Great chance for you to get a space reserved and bring out some goodies to sell at the yard sale. That'll be held over at the trolley parking lot off of Greenwood Drive. Space reservations begin on September 5th, and more information will be sent out to you via the email system that CSA utilizes, as well as our Facebook page and our website. The Sea Pines Bonfire event to support the Sea Pines Forest Preserve will be held on Friday, November 10th from 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. It's going to be over in the Sea Pines Forest Preserve. Ticket sales begin on October 2nd. So great events, really fun. It's really great food, great friends, meet your neighbors, have a great time. So more information following. We also are planning a flu shot clinic and a community blood drive. Dates and details for those two events are also forthcoming. So I will move now to some additional information about the ARB open positions for 2018. ARB stands for the Architectural Review Board. We have 2 positions open. There is a full-time member position. That position is appointed by the CSA Board of Directors. They serve a 3-year term. That position can serve no more than 2 consecutive terms. We also have a position open for the alternate ARB position. That position is appointed by CSA and ASPO Board. The alternate position serves a 1-year term and may not serve more than 8 consecutive terms. The ARB meets every Tuesday at 1 p.m. in the CSA Administration Building. And interested candidates should submit a resume to Sandra Archer, who's a CSA Executive Administrative Assistant, by email, and that email can be seen right here, sandra@csaseapines.com, and we ask that those are returned by August 31st. Some information about CSA and ASPO's Board of Director election. We have elections coming up, as I previously mentioned. I'd like to make the group aware of our ASPO nominating committee members. Dave Borghese is a chairman, Charlie Miner, and Beverly Serrell. So these folks make up the nominating committee for ASPO related to Board of Director elections. This is a 2017 CSA nominating committee members. Dave Borghese is a chair of this group as well. Barry Barth and Charlie Miner serve on that group. So we do need some need to pass some information related to the actual nominations. We have 3 positions open for each board, 3 for CSA and 3 for ASPO. They will commence January 1st, 2018. Interested applicants are asked to send a nomination form to CSA, care of the nominating committee. You can mail it to us at 175 Greenwood Drive, or you can email the form to Sandra Archer. This is the form. It's going to be right up front. So we have separate forms for CSA and for ASPO as well. So if you're interested in running for either of those boards, please grab a form on your way out. The board forms are also available on our website at www.seapinesliving.com. And if you visit under property owners, the Board of Director election page, that's where you'll find that information. And then copies are also available at the admin building up at the front desk by reception. We ask that these forms be returned by August 15th and return them to Sandra Archer. There is an opportunity as well to nominate by petition if you're interested in running for either of those boards. The petition requires signatures of 50 valid residential Sea Pines property owners that are in good standing. The candidate must be willing and able to serve. Both CSA and ASPO bylaws require those nominating by petition to have their interest reach the nominating committee by October 1st, 2017. Again, similarly to these forms, the nomination by petition forms are also up front at the near Jean. Jean, give us a wave. There she is. And the nomination by petition forms can also be found on our website and at the CSA admin building. This is a different date, so you can see here, per their bylaws, these nomination by petition forms are due by October 1st, 2017. And you can certainly contact CSA if you have any questions related to our Board of Director elections. Some information about an upcoming property owner traffic survey. So CSA is planning to conduct a property owner-wide traffic survey to determine the level of importance to traffic-related issues in the areas of Greenwood Gate and Ocean Gate. So some of you may have had the opportunity to either attend in person or listen via webinar to a Greenwood Gate configuration meeting that we held last week. We had some really great attendance for both in-person and the webinar sessions. This is a follow-up to utilize the areas that we've been provided feedback on, and to take that feedback and really focus in on Greenwood Gate and the area of Ocean Gate. The survey will be sent via email. It will be expected to be sent out the second week of August, which is actually this week coming up, and we'll have a 2-week return window period. If you have any questions on updating your email address, if you're not sure which email you have in your account, please reach out to us to make sure that we're getting you that copy of that survey, which would come via email, and you would just email us here, info@csaseapines.com. That email comes directly to me so we can get you updated to make sure that you would receive that email for you. Some information about the Town of Hilton Head's beach fill project. So following Hurricane Matthew, the Sea Pines beachfront took a pretty good hit. We have been working with the Town of Hilton Head to try to get them to come back in to repair and backfill some sand into certain areas within the beach. In the upcoming weeks, preliminary activities associated with the emergency beach fill project will begin. The beach work area will be between Brown Pelican Road, which is beach marker number 12, to near East Beach Lagoon, which is beach marker 34. So that is a pretty good stretch of area. The initial project schedule will begin on August 27th, 2017, and it will begin near Tower Beach. The work is expected to advance northward towards Beach Lagoon Drive. This is a Town of Hilton Head project, so CSA is working very closely with them to make sure that our property owners, guests, and visitors are aware of what's going on. So anytime that we receive updates from the Town of Hilton Head, we will push those out to our property owners. But alternatively, you could also visit their website, hiltonheadislandsc.gov, to find out information as well. At this time, I will pass it to Victoria Shanahan, who is our CSA Director of Finance. Victoria, you want to drive or you want me to do it?
You can
Okay.
just have that one slide. Good morning, everyone. Are we enjoying this weather? How long do you think it's going to last? I know. I just wanted to give you an update as to where we were with special assessment expenditures. As you can see, in 2016, we spent 2.2, and we're at almost 2.5 for 2017. We have not touched the lagoons. We have not touched the beach walks or the boardwalks, so we still have a lot to go. So I anticipate that number to jump up this year. And if you have any questions, you need details, feel free to contact me. One other thing I wanted to talk to you about is the CSA information system, all of our software. There was a task force of the governance committee that looked into all of our software and how we interact and how we do things. And it was determined that we operate in all these silos. Security has software, finance has software, maintenance has software, and they don't talk to one another. So sometimes we're entering things in twice, even 3 times. For example, if you call in for a work order for a mailbox, that gets entered into the maintenance software and you get a new mailbox. Then we enter it into the database so that we can invoice you for the mailbox. Then we turn around and enter it into my accounting software so that revenue will show up in the financial statements. So you see, this is very ineffective. So we have hired a consulting firm by the name of TriBridge to come in and analyze all of these systems and all this software so we would have an enterprise-wide system. So things would be entered one time and one time only, and it would work off a main database. So we're in the process of doing that. They are supposed to come back, I believe, August 18th for their recommendation for an enterprise-wide software. So I just wanted to keep you all updated as that's what's happening in our building right now. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Victoria, for that update. We will now move to Russell Fredericks, CSA Director of Maintenance, for an update related to maintenance projects.
Good morning, everybody. Just wanted to share quickly that I really enjoyed my first couple months here in Sea Pines and getting out to meet a lot of the property owners here, a lot of familiar faces here this morning, and just wanted to provide a couple quick updates about what's going on in our maintenance department. We've been working hard to repair all the potholes, on Greenwood Drive particularly, and as well as increasing and make sure our roads are well maintained with street sweeping. So I'm hoping that everyone's seeing the street sweeping in their neighborhoods, and if not, certainly let us know. But our contractor is in here on a very routine basis, making sure that the roadways are being blown off and swept. Regarding the pothole repair, we're planning on moving into some of the secondary roads in the coming weeks, and I'll have a schedule on that shortly. But again, this is something that will be ongoing through the balance of the summer. One of the more recent projects that we're starting to undertake is culvert clearing around the property. We started with Greenwood Drive in the last couple weeks, and again, this is something that we're planning to moving into some of the secondary roads and other neighborhoods around the community, and something that's kind of been a long time coming, certainly to enhance stormwater flow. We're currently working with the town on some stormwater repairs in the community, and I should have an update shortly on some of that work as well. But this is one of the necessary functions to keep everything flowing well. We've had a lot of rain recently of virtually almost about 9 to 10 inches of rain here in the month of July or so, compared to last July was just about a quarter inch of rain. So it's, with that said, it's really kind of impacted our maintenance just in terms of daily operations, mowing, and things of that nature. It's kind of made it a little bit challenging to keep up with all the rain that we have had out there. Just some of our other ongoing maintenance operations, aquatic weed control and mosquito control. Certainly, the mosquito population in this year is, given all the rain, we've seen an uptick there. Beaufort County was in the property about a week ago spraying, and then our team is out there on Mondays and Thursday evenings spraying the roadways throughout the community. So if anyone's seeing any problem areas around there, certainly let us know. We've also been doing a lot of pine store operations, particularly around Fraser Circle, which is looking spectacular right now. So our team did an excellent job there. One of the projects I just wanted to quickly announce for this coming fall, we have some extensive road resurfacing that we're planning around the community, particularly Plantation Drive from Greenwood to Lighthouse Road is going to be one of our bigger projects, and we'll be coming forth with a schedule in the coming weeks. But we are planning for this fall, sometime right after Labor Day, to get started on some of this work. We're not planning any roadway shutdowns. We're going to keep the traffic moving. There might be some very temporary closures. But we're meeting with our contractor presently to develop a traffic control plan to make sure everyone that's along that stretch is able to exit and enter their roads very easily. Some other areas that we're planning on resurfacing are North and South Live Oak and Magnolia Crescent. So certainly any questions on this, I'll be more than happy to answer afterwards. But we anticipate this taking, again, most of the fall, considering the scope of the work. So, and it's something a long time. It's a long time coming on Plantation Drive. It's in pretty rough shape. So, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Toby McSwain.
Good morning. Just some quick updates. Hope everyone's had a good summer so far. It's been busy. I'm still happy to report we have not had anything that's major that's occurred inside of Sea Pines. Year to date, we have responded to 16,655 calls for service. That's a telephone call to our dispatch center. The month of July alone, it was 3,100 calls for service that came in. So it's been very busy. Just a couple, we've had 6 pretty good bicycle accidents during the month of July, 16 motor vehicle collisions, and we're still responding to our usuals, our noise complaints, our house check. For those of you that are new to the community, we have a service that we provide at no cost to you if you're going on vacation. You can call the office, go online, fill out a house check request, and I don't think Mr. Ellison's here today, but we'll come around and check your property while you're gone. We don't go inside. We basically walk the exterior of the property, make sure water's not coming out from underneath your door. Just kind of keep an eye on your property while you're gone. Doesn't cost anything. The month of July, Mr. Ellison did 1,047 house checks. So it's a program that works. And year to date, we've done 4,100. So it's a busy time, but he starts his morning and we check the homes. So all in all, it's good. Our gates, it's busy. Anyone have any idea what we did the month of July at the gates? Just about 55,000 daily passes was sold the month of July. 39,000, roughly a little over 39,000 at Greenwood, 14 thereabout at 15,000 at the Ocean Gate. So it's busy at the gates. I've missed the last couple. I was traveling when you had the meetings with the engineer. There's a lot of good ideas up there we need to really figure out. hopefully some solution to expedite people through the gate. We're still going to be selling passes. I mean, we're still going to have to make change. People still going to stop and ask questions, but I think there's got to be some other opportunities for us to create a better entrance and make it more efficient than what we currently have. Trolleys. Surprisingly, with the number of passes, because we're up overall, even just for the year, not just for July, but we're up overall daily passes for the year. Our trolley numbers are a little surprising. We still are turning a good number on the trolley ridership, but we're roughly about 4,700 fewer riders this year in comparison to last year, which is really, the gate passes are up, but the ridership on the trolleys is actually down. So it's, but if you look at our leisure pass, there's a lot of people on bicycles. So I guess maybe they're getting a little more exercise. Gate passes. When did we, Victoria, remind me on when did we go to commercial $10? June 1st. Since June 1st, for the commercial contractors coming into the property, it went from $6 to $10. Since June the 1st, we have seized hundreds of passes that have been called in by the property owners for commercial contractors. Property owners cannot call in a pass for someone working inside the community. You're basically taking money out of your own pocket. Everyone has to pay. Your lawnmower, your landscaper, your HVAC company, you can't call a pass in. So I've had some heated property owners call, very upset that this has always been the policy. This is not anything new starting June 1st. So please don't call a pass in for someone that's coming to service your property. Majority of our larger companies buy commercial decals that lets themselves in, but we have people that don't work, they're not in here every day. And so in the new system that we're gonna have, I'm gonna change the color of the commercial passes. So as patrol rides around and we see someone that has a pass of a different color with lawnmowers and they're doing work, we're gonna kick them out of the community. So please don't do that. And I'm not saying that anyone here has done that. I'm just saying, since June the 1st, we have seized hundreds of passes. Lost and found. If you have lost something and it's not been returned, it might be at my office. We have bicycles, purses, Yeti coolers, cameras, cell phones, wallets. I mean, you name it. Sunglasses, beach chairs. I mean, so if you're missing something, please come by the office and check. We have, I think, 19 bicycles in the back of the office currently. So if you're missing any of this, please come by. We're collecting it. The crosswalks. Let me I want to touch on this. There's been a program that we're instituting when we're repaving roads. We're also stamping the crosswalks. So all the new crosswalks that you see, we're stamping them, make it a little brighter so as the motoring public comes, you can obviously see in the roadway that there's a crosswalk. State law requires that if someone is in the crosswalk, you have to stop. Okay, what does that mean? Are they standing on the shoulder of the road? Yes, there is people that when they're standing on the side of the road, they're going to stop in front of you, let someone across the crosswalk. They're going to do that. The one that's of concern is the one really at the Greenwood Gate where there's double lanes. If they're standing on the shoulder of the road at the Greenwood Gate, proceed until they get into the crosswalk. Because what is happening is that someone in the left lane sees someone standing there, they stop. They start into the roadway. Well, the second lane traffic exiting the gate up there does not see the pedestrian in the crosswalk. And it's bad. So if I stop, if there's no one behind me and someone's standing there, I always stop and let them across the street, just to get them across the street. But be cautious. I mean, the one at the Greenwood Gate is dangerous. I am going to make some recommendations to the Safety and Security Committee on some new items that we can put in the crosswalk. So as you're riding along, you're obviously aware that it's a crosswalk approaching. So please use caution there. Our turtle patrol, I had a conversation with the town yesterday. We've had hundreds of turtles that have died this year during the nesting season for 2 reasons. Humans. Digging holes on the beach that they don't fill in after they play in the sand and leaving the lights on at the beach. That's been the cause of the majority of the deaths of the turtles that are hatching. So please, if you take your grandkids out to the beach or you like to dig a hole yourself, before you leave the beach, please fill it in, because I don't want to show the pictures, but it's sad to see this big hole and all these turtles in one hole, and they all died. So please, if you go to the beach, cover your holes up. We're working on some signage with the town to try to push this information out there. But our beach rental properties, if you live beachside, please, the lights at night, please dim them when you can. It's a big concern, and right now there's a lot of turtles that are nesting, and because of the storm damage, a lot of the turtles' nests have been moved really right outside the beach club. So if you go down there, you just see a row of all these turtle nests. That's where they've been relocated to. Yes?
They wouldn't handle it. They said, the beach is not our province. I said, it's
No.
not the beach, it's the lights in the house. And then they said, you have to call the sheriff. So I called the sheriff. Sheriff said, we can't do it. Security has to do it. So
If someone
who do
calls
you
our
call?
office, we respond to tell someone to turn the
Well,
lights
they
out.
wouldn't do
Every
it.
night
They
during
wouldn't
the
do it.
turtle season, the town of Hilton Head has volunteers and codes enforcement officers on the beach. So there's someone on the beach every night. If you actually look at the Tower Beach, there's 3 vehicles parked down there that we've allowed Turtle Patrol to put their
So
equipment
if
in
I
our
call
parking
this
lot.
year, you'll come.
If you call the CSA security office, we
that's-
respond to all the calls.
Okay.
We don't shuck it off on someone else. The house is inside of Sea Pines. It's our
Yes,
responsibility.
yeah, it was right at the end of my beach walk,
Yes, ma'am.
right? Okay.
Closing school for Beaufort County Public Schools starts back August 17th. Hilton Head Prep, opening school, I'm sorry. Opening day is August 17th. Hilton Head Prep orientation begins August 19th, and prep starts their full day on August 15th. So please be cautious in the new school year. I'll have the maps for the school buses. They'll be back in the community, so please use caution. Going back to Linda's, if you have an issue in the community, regardless of what it is, if it's someone disturbing you that's swimming in the pool at 1 o'clock in the morning, or it's fireworks, or it's parking related, I would ask that you call security and let us respond to the call. I do not recommend you going next door and knocking on anyone's door, because I got to tell you, there's property owners that have been served here recently by attorneys saying if you come on our property again, you're going to jail for trespassing, which is true. So if you have an issue, instead of you handling it yourself, it might be better to let us handle that, because that's what you pay us for. So please, don't go knock on someone's door because the rental unit next door is making too much noise. Let us do that for you. We document it. That way, if there's charges or tickets that are written, we can handle all of that. So please don't take the matters into your own hands, because sometimes it may not turn out to your benefit. Last but least, the Post and Chain. The Post and Chain program started in the Safety and Security Committee, went to MMMP for approval, and then ultimately to the CSA board for approval and funding. It is an ongoing project on South Sea Pines Drive currently. We're not done with the Post and Chain. We have it with our current and our engineer. It's his #1 project that we're still looking at to create connectivity from the leisure path to the beach walks, to get people across the road, to get them to the beach access points as safely as possible. It may not mean that you get to come out of a paved road and you get to have a direct access to the closest beach walk that you can walk without stepping over the chain. The goal is to keep cars from pulling off and people out of the roadway. That's the #1 and 2 goals that we're trying to accomplish here. I understand it's not perfect right now, but we're also not done with the project either. We really want to tie the leisure paths with the beach access points when we can. That is the ultimate goal, is to get them out of the roadway. New signage, we've got to put signage up, so when someone comes here, how do I get to the beach access point? Well, it may be that you may have to go down the leisure path 50 yards and then cross over the road at a crosswalk. So there's crosswalks being looked at that's going there, but we can't connect, as you could understand, we can't connect every beach access point to a leisure path, because there's 54 beach access just in Sea Pines alone, 54. So we're working on this, and we understand that it is an issue and is a problem, and yes, people are going to walk in the roadway. If they decide they want to cross the road, there's not anything I can do about that, but they're going to do that. But we are working to make the roadway as safe as possible. and we're not done. It is our contract engineer. It's his number one thing. So we're hoping, Russell and I discussed this morning, we're hoping the next couple of weeks to have his plan back and then start implementing some additional items in that area. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Toby, for that update. We will now hear from Steve Birdwell, the president of the Sea Pines Resort, related to the community referendum update. Steve?
Good morning, everyone. As you know, we have a proposal to expand and improve the Inn and to make it one of the best hotels in the country. And we made a proposal and we've been working on this with the leaders at CSA and ASPO for over 2 years. We have what we think is a very generous offer that's been approved by the ASPO board and also by the CSA board, and those board meetings were held in late June. Since then, we've received a tremendous amount of comments, feedback. We've been meeting with a lot of property owners. We'll continue to meet with property owners. And we've also taken this feedback and trying to learn from the feedback that you all are giving us. And we've updated the good ones who own, as you know, own the resort. And I will say that it's met with a lot of disappointment from the good ones. And it's given some pause. We have a board meeting scheduled next week. And I think to understand the disappointment, it probably is important just to take a couple minutes and explain the Goodwin ownership and how that came about and under the terms and the conditions that they purchased the resort. Well, they did purchase the resort in the spring of 2005. And at that time, the resort was owned by Sea Pines Associates. And so it was owned by a group of property owners. Several hundred property owners owned Sea Pines Associates, had no access to capital. The resort had a tremendous amount of outstanding loans that were in place. And all the assets that the company owned were in dire need of a lot of improvement. And so in 2005, the Sea Pines Associates board, they contacted the Goodwins, recommended that they take a look at it more closely. They already own holdings in Sea Pines Associates. And in the spring of 2005, they did make an offer to purchase all the outstanding shares of the resort. So since that time, they've invested more than $200 million. It's $200 million out of the Goodwin family that have been invested. And so they've not taken $1 out of the resort. When they purchased the resort, they knew of the conditions that we were in. They understood the investment they needed to make to purchase the common stock that was out there. That was $28 million. But they also, on that same day, repaid $38 million that the resort had in loans that were outstanding. They also went down, and as you know, we didn't own the assets in Harbor Town, so they spent another $17 million to secure those assets and to get those one holdings back in the resort's portfolio so we could continue to improve and make those assets better. And Bill Goodwin stood before all the Sea Pines Associates shareholders, and he said, I don't know if we can do what's necessary to turn Sea Pines around, but we're going to do everything that we can, and we're going to do what's right, and we're always going to do what's right. And since that time, we've touched every single asset that we own. We've got more to go. Yes, we can look at the trailer in Harbor Town. We're not happy with the tennis trailer. We got more improvements to be made. We got a dated swimming pool, for example. But we've invested, and they've invested in all these great new facilities that we have to offer. The clubhouses, the award-winning clubhouses that we have, the beautiful new beach club, all three of our golf courses have been rebuilt. There's not a resort in America that have the collection of 3 golf courses in the conditions that we have today. And I'm not trying to brag, I'm just trying to make you all understand the significance of the investments, because there's no debt. And matter of fact, in 2005, when they paid off all those loans, for the very first time in the history of Sea Pines, the resort was debt-free. Charles, as you know, he built everything with loans from insurance companies and banks, and then when Sea Pines Associates took ownership out of the bankruptcy, they didn't have any other access to capital other than loans. So all the improvements that were made during the Sea Pines Associates days were done with loans. So when the Goodwins think about the fact that they've spent $200 million, they've not taken $1 out of the resort, they're willing to continue to make improvements, you know, it's disappointing and frustrating to know that we have, you know, opposition to what we want to do, and only to try to make the resort better. So at this point, we're really gathering all the details. We know all the issues that have been raised. We're going to talk about that in a board meeting next week, and determine how best to go forward. I will say the Goodwins don't want to hold a referendum that isn't wildly supported by the community. So we don't want to try to determine how we could get a referendum to get to 75% plus one vote. I mean, that's not going to benefit anybody. They want to be involved in a community referendum that would be completely supported by a vast majority of property owners. They've been property owners, residential owners in Sea Pines for more than 35 years. They come regularly. The kids are here. They all are enjoying it, and they are neighbors. They're good neighbors, and they want to continue to be good neighbors. And that's basically where we are. And we're going to be talking about it, and we're well aware of all the issues that are outstanding. So thank you.
Thank you to Steve Birdwell for that update. We'll now hear from Mark Griffith, CSA Board Chairman. Mark?
Thank you. Following up on Steve's, I just have a couple comments. He gave you kind of the timeline when this term sheet was rolled out. Since then, there's been considerable comment. Obviously, the packet has enjoyed the last month. There are several internet pages and Facebooks. I'd want to remind the group that the ASPO board voted in late June in support of this term sheet. These are 9 residential elected property owners, and they voted 7-1 to support the term sheet. A week later, the CSA board voted 15-0 with 2 members abstaining. 9 of those directors are residential property owners. We then held a property owner, or initiated a property owner survey. One of the questions on that survey is, do you support the term sheet? We've yet to close that survey, and we will release those results, but I want you to know that 53% of us support the term sheet as it was put forward. Yes, 24% were undecided, so there is some work to do, some communication necessary, and 22% were opposed. So in my view, it's clearly within the realm of reality that we may well be able to have a successful referendum. I and the board find it extremely frustrating and, quite frankly, insulting that some of our residents, and I'm not suggesting that's any of you, claim that we don't represent the interests of the residential property owners. With those 3 points that I just expressed to you, the ASPO vote, the CSA vote, the 53% support of a referendum based upon the survey, I think it suggests that there is support in this community and that we board members are supporting the residential property owners. And basically, I want to remind you that we all work very hard. The 9 ASPO directors, the 9 CSA residential directors carry the majority of the workload. No disrespect to our friends at the commercial and the resort interests, but we carry the majority of the workload. This is not a small job, and I'm not complaining. I've enjoyed my now 3 years. I've got 2 more years on this board. But this is nearly a full-time job. And I find it frustrating to be accused of not being representative of your interests. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Mark. We are going a bit off agenda slightly. Charlie Miner, ASPO president, will also make some comments. Charlie?
Thank you. One of the things that is a little bit confusing and frustrating with the referendum is that I think that we have focused so much on the art of the deal, what's in that deal, that we've really lost sight of what it is we need to do as a community and where our future lies. Yes, there are issues about a swimming pool, there are issues about trees, there are issues about all sorts of things within the referendum, but I think we've lost sight of the critical juncture which this plantation currently occupies. We have been operating for a number, well, we took over a plantation here in a transition about 5 or 6 years ago, which was in absolute chaos. We had a $6 million punitive damage award against sea pines. We had basically no financial structure that we could look forward to. And we began to put some organization and some order into that. We settled the lawsuit with minimum cost to the community. We put together a team of people here in Amanda and Brett and others, Toby, that have done just an outstanding job of operating this plantation. Unfortunately, we didn't have a good view of how much it cost to operate this plantation, nor what our sources of revenue were. So over that same period of time, we've undertaken some major tasks to try and get that organized so that we know what it costs to operate here, so that it is the kind of plantation that we all want to live in. Pittman Engineering did a recent study on our stormwater and our lagoons. You can drive by numerous lagoons and see them stinking and too shallow. They need to be dredged, they need to be cleaned out. No attention had been paid to that in years past. So having taken on these various tasks, we've come up with basically an agenda of revenue sources that we need to tap and expenses that we need to meet. So a good part of what this referendum was about when we initially started it was let's get our revenue sources squared away so that we know what we are going to receive in terms of money to run this place. In the process, the referendum dealt with a variety of our revenue sources. We have 4 or 5 revenue sources. We have the assessment from the residents, $1,000 per year per property owner, or about $5.86 million a year. Costs about $11 million to run the place, so the rest comes from other sources. It comes from the resort, they have an assessment, and it comes from the commercial entities, and it comes from the gate fee. So those are the major sources. There are some other miscellaneous sources, and there's some that we are looking forward to in the future, something such as a real estate transfer fee that might add additional funding to us. But our expenses in the future going forward are significant, and we need to address those. So when we put together the referendum, a part of what we had to deal with were the basic assessments. We dealt with the resort on their assessment, and out of this referendum, if it passes, the amount of money coming from the resort to pay the bills for the future will roughly double. 50% increase in the assessment rate, plus additional revenues, plus all the investment they put into that will generate significant revenue. We had to deal with commercial assessment. We came up finally with a formula that about triples the commercial assessment. However, the commercial people were not part of that discussion. So in fairness to them, we came forward with a referendum term sheet that was very vague about how the commercial assessment would be dealt with. Then the two boards both passed resolutions increasing the gate fee to $10 and again putting the gate fee pressure back on the commercial people. Well, to their credit, Bob Gossett and others, the major commercial people in this community, have met and tried to work with their constituents to figure out what is fair for them and what will work for them. Yes, I've heard the comment, well, we'll just put a voucher in here, or we'll just do that, or we'll just do that. These are the people who make their living here. They have as much right to be here as we do. And so it has taken some time, but I think we're very close to coming to some significant progress. Significant progress both in the commercial assessment and the gate fee. Okay, now we knocked off 3 of the major 4 revenue sources. That's what that's a major part of what this referendum was about. As Mark said and as Steve said, the concessions made by the resort in this process were significant. Is there a better deal? Well, if you read The Art of the Deal, I suppose there is always a better deal. And perhaps there will be changes. But the key thing is we can't lose sight of this is the future of our community. If we deny the resort their needs, what will happen to our needs? So I think it's something that we're all in together. We try and work on it as a team. People ask me, well, why don't you fight for the residents? I think I am. That's sort of what it is. I mean, we need to live here in the future, and so we need a funding formula. We need a relationship between the commercial, the resort, and the residential constituents here that is supportive of each other, that recognizes the individual needs of each party, and comes up with the best solution available to us to try and come up with a formula to go forward. We are at a crisis. We're basically at break even. We draw out of reserves to make our daily expenses. We have a history of neglecting the infrastructure. We rarely have been able to do a project like Tower Beach or Fraser Circle, which has improved the community for us. And we have other things to look forward to doing that. To get that done, we need to get a team together of commercial, resort, and residential working in the same direction. So that's the purpose of the referendum. I'm hoping that the board meeting that Steve talks about will make a decision to go forward with this. They've committed a lot of money so far. I would hate to see them back off. But that's really where we are. And once again, it's important to understand why this is here as opposed to just what it is. So thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments, Charlie, as well as Mark. Another slightly off agenda item, I'm going to have David Henderson, our Director of Special Projects and Operations, come up for a short time to brief us on some events, some items happening in Audubon New Hall as well as the Forest Preserve. David.
Thank you, Amanda. Just as Sea Pines was impacted by Hurricane Matthew, so was the Forest Preserve. And, you know, we were going through a process in the community of prioritization in which obviously safety and structures and access and all of those things were kind of being taken care of with the full knowledge that the Forest Preserve had been pretty significantly impacted by the storm. But we were able, with the full cooperation of the resort, to bring in state registered foresters late last year and to do an assessment of the storm damage in the Forest Preserve. And they found that there was about 10 to 15% of the total acreage in the Forest Preserve were in the 60 to 100 acre range that would be appropriate and suitable to conduct a salvage harvest in which damaged trees could be removed. The problem was that the groundwater was so high. We had received upwards of 24 inches of rain during the storm. It was at the beginning of the dormant season. And even though the months were going by, the water table was not getting any lower. In fact, we were considerably dry for a period after the storm, but all that rain and water that came in was still there. So it kind of became one of those classic, you know, hurry up, wait, panic situations as the ground conditions just were not appropriate. But the good news is that about a couple months ago, because we were monitoring the water levels, the groundwater lowered to the point where we could conduct a salvage harvest in the Forest Preserve. And the purpose of the harvest is not only to clean up the damage from the storm, restore access, but also where we can do some stand improvement work so that that stand of trees is better in the long term than it was before the storm. Because what we found, and what Audubon Newhall found especially, was that the trees that were there had largely not been managed for many, many decades, and the densities had become so great that the trees themselves were overcrowded, and so they were having some issues, and we experienced a disproportionate amount of damage as a result of the storm, in part because of that. They were not in great shape before the storm. They were in much worse shape after the storm. The reason why I wasn't on the agenda and the reason why I wanted to make these comments is that we could not find a contractor a couple months ago to do the work now that we're ready. So here we are, 8 months later, and we've been chomping at the bit. We're finally ready to go, no contractor. Well, just in the last 24 hours have we secured a qualified contractor to be able to do this work. And again, working with the full cooperation of the resort, we are starting work in these areas as soon as today. And it may be 2 to 3 weeks in length. A lot of the work you will not be able to see unless you're inside the preserve itself. Some of it you may be able to see, but it's a two-step process, and I'll go back to Audubon Newhall. For those of you that aren't familiar with it, it's a 50-acre property that's accessible off of Palmetto Bay Road. It is within Sea Pines, but it's owned by the Hilton Head Audubon Society, and they had a lot of damage, as you may have seen from Palmetto Bay Road. And so we have cooperated and worked with them, helped reestablish the perimeter fuel break that was there before the storm. And Audubon Newhall is now open. They are a volunteer organization, so they've done a tremendous amount of work to restore access and to get that facility open again. So that I wanted to let you know that they are open. But what we have is essentially we're talking about the upland areas in the forest preserve, that 60 to 100 acres. It's primarily pine trees that were most susceptible to the storm damage where this work will occur. And it's just not in one area. It's in 5 or 6 different areas that you may see the activity over the next few weeks. So I did want to let you know that, and also that this is a two-step process. So if any of you are familiar with any type of timber harvesting operations, it's loud, it's noisy, it's dirty, and it leaves a big mess. And we are coming back with step 2, as was done at Audubon Newhall, with the cleanup process so that we can hopefully not only improve clean it up, but make it in many ways better than it was before the storm. So I just want to let you all know that. And we'll get additional information out as it becomes available. It's just that it's been 10 months, and yet it's in the last 24 hours. It's been very, very hectic. So we'll get this information out to you and let you know what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, David, for those comments. As a quick reminder, before we move on to our 5-minute meeting break, there is a meeting in this room at 11 a.m. It's the Sea Pines Shell Ring Research Project update. For those of you who are interested in hanging around till 11, that event will be in this room from 11 to 12. We will take a short 3 to 5 minute meeting break. Please help yourselves in the back to the pastries and coffees for those in the audience, and we will reconvene shortly. Thank you. CSA staff members Jean McElroy right over here on this corner and David Henderson over here will be running the microphones. So Jean, you're good? David as well? Okay, perfect. So let's see, who has the first question? Okay, David, we'll run over here.
Thank you. I only have 3 comments more
Yes,
than any questions. First of all, I support everything that Mr. Briner said. And the second thing is really a minor issue, but regarding the area where the horses are, the 8 acres, has anyone on the board in the planning considered the extra acreage at Six Oaks? It is a recreational design area, and I think maybe something could be worked out between Sea Pines and the resort to use that for the tennis courts.
That's a great question.
So,
Mark, Charlie, either of you would like to address that question?
That acreage does have a park designation. I think the challenge, have we looked at it? Has the resort looked at it? Not that I'm aware of. I think knowing what I know about that. First of all, I think it's smaller than the acreage requirement. I think, David, it's 7 acres, 6.5, something like that. But more importantly, there are 6 absolutely magnificent, probably the best specimen live oaks in this community in Six Oaks Park. And I don't think you could locate 14 to 16 tennis courts around those oaks. So, good idea, but I don't think in reality it's probably feasible. Thanks.
Ditto.
Okay. Okay. And sir, did you say you had 3 questions or just 2? Okay. Not a problem. Other questions? We'll go back to Sue. Good morning, Sue.
I just have a question on, actually it's for, I think, Russell.
Okay.
Do we know where the West Nile virus mosquitoes were located on Hilton Head?
I do not know offhand. What we are doing is continuing to spray on a routine basis, as I said earlier, twice a week, and we also just had Beaufort County in here spraying the week before. So we're going to be reaching back out to Beaufort County to see if they'll be coming back through. I'm understanding their airplane that does the mosquito spraying should be back up and operational shortly. So, but we'll continue making all those efforts through the rest of the season.
We're spraying on the golf courses as well. The golf courses.
Thank you for that question, Sue. Other questions? Jean, if we could go back here on the side. Good morning.
Good morning, Joni Harris. I just have a question about the frequency of mowing.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed a lot of the more common areas, as well as some of the green space right along Greenwood Drive. I know we've had a wet summer, but the grass is getting high, and what used to be mowed back behind us weekly is not getting mowed, maybe every 2 or 3 weeks at the most.
Russell, would you like to address that?
Sure, I could address that. Certainly, if you could send me your address or just stop by afterwards and see me, we could address that specifically. But as I said earlier, we've had a tremendous amount of rain. Given the conditions here and throughout the property, we have what's known as Bahia grass, which is located on most of the thoroughfares and main roadways, and it actually thrives in these conditions that we've had for June and July. And essentially the mowing on that, in order to keep it in check, is really every couple of days. As soon as you mow it, it's growing again. We're making our best efforts to keep up with it. But if there's some certain areas that aren't being mowed, just stop by and see me afterwards, and we will address it for you. Sure.
You can also always alternatively email us if you'd like to. Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate that notice. Other questions? Oh, absolutely. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Hey.
My question is for the tennis courts. I understand, I think, that the Sea Pines Resorts owns the Heritage Farm plots. And we're leasing it back, if I understand this right. But why isn't it a consideration to put the tennis courts across the street when it would be more beneficial, I think, and not as upsetting to the neighborhood? Or once the farm is unleased or deeded back or whatever to the resorts, do they have something in mind to use that area? And is that why the tennis courts couldn't be there?
It's a great question. Steve.
Very good question, and it's one that's come up many times in my recent discussions. 2 things about the community farm, the Heritage Farm. Number one, there are a lot of property owners that enjoy and utilize the farm. So we're going to have equal number of people not happy with the farm being moved, and we've talked about possibly moving the farm. But more importantly is we've had, the farm is part of the Forest Preserve. So a lot of people don't understand that. But the 13 acres that we own there are part of the larger 600 acres that we own in the Forest Preserve. The Forest Preserve has 4 sets of covenants that were placed on the property starting in 1970. And when those covenants were placed, Charles was very specific about the uses that could be, that the property could be used for. And unfortunately, tennis wasn't one of those uses. And also, there can be no commercial operation within the Forest Preserve areas. So our lawyers tell us that we have, that the whole Forest Preserve, including the farm, really doesn't allow tennis, and we can't put a commercial operation there. So it's really limiting in what the Forest Preserve can be, and I think that's exactly what they wanted in 1970 when the Forest Preserve covenants were placed in service. So the property that you see is the property that we're going to have basically forever. And we may make improvements, and CSA has continued in the Forest Preserve to make improvements to trails, and hopefully we'll get some real restrooms in there one day, and there will be improvements that will be made, but there won't be any structures, there won't be commercial operations and those kind of things. So it's limiting. The tennis is a challenge because we need to have a 15 or 16 court facility. We need to have 7 acres, approximately 7 acres to build the courts and to build a small clubhouse. And so we need 7 acres that we can, that's zoned and in the master plan allows for tennis. So we have searched high and low on all the property that we have. And we have a few parcels, but we don't have any 7-acre parcels. And so it's a challenge. There is in the Lawton Stables, and I understand the issues with Lawton Stables. Tennis is a use on 8 acres in Lawton Stables. So that's the reason why we were looking at Lawton, because the covenants that are in place allow the use. It's already cleared because the idea of using an area like Six Oaks Park would be a good idea, but tennis requires clearing, so it's going to have to be cleared wherever the property is. So you can't play tennis under trees. So it's a challenge, and we have limited options for tennis. So long answer to your question.
Regarding the covenants that restrict anything going on in the Forest Preserve, how do we go about changing those? I mean, there's 600 acres sitting there.
Yeah.
You need to carve out 6 or 7.
And that's a good question too. And every covenant that Charles in those early days put in place have a mechanism for change. And most of them require a referendum. There are some that we have the right to modify, which we've done infrequently over the 40 years. But on the Forest Preserve, he purposely made no mechanism for changing the covenants. So that's a big issue with those those 4 sets of covenants that were placed on the property. No mechanism to change them.
Other questions? Yes, we'll take a follow-up question here, David.
Steve, where do you stand with the idea of repurposing? Where do you stand with the idea of repurposing existing tennis courts that are being underutilized within Sea Pines, mostly out at South Beach?
Well, we've been in touch in discussions with Don and Rachel Sigmund, who own South Beach Racquet Club, for many months. And it's a possibility. Don has built a great business there, and it's something that we've been continuing to talk with him about. He would love to have a partnership with us, and we may do that. As you know, it's South Beach is on one side of the plantation, so it's convenient for people that are living and staying on that side of Sea Pines, but it's not so convenient for people staying in the Harbortown area. So it's a possibility. We're going to continue those discussions with Don and Rachel, and then, as you know, Dan, you've pointed out that there are many tennis courts in villa complexes that are spread throughout Sea Pines, including 8 courts that are over at Sea Pines Country Club. And we're continuing to talk with the club as well. The club has a great membership and tennis players, so and that's obviously a private membership club. And then there are many underutilized courts. We do have arrangements with 2 of the complexes currently. So if you see the courts that are here at Lighthouse Tennis Villas that are used, those are Smith Stearns students that are using those hard courts. And they need access to hard courts because many of their tournaments are on hard courts. So the practice and play on those hard courts is important. And Smith Stearns paid to improve those hard courts. Also, they have an agreement with Racket Club Villas. And you'll see some play happening with the Smith Stearns Academy on the Racket Club courts from time to time. And then they obviously use the courts that we have in Harbortown. So continue those discussions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. A question back here? I'll let Jean grab that one. Good morning.
Good morning. Jack McHenry. I had a couple of questions and comments. One about master planning, and I'm thinking that a lot of the comments I heard this morning about deed restrictions, and sometimes they're difficult to change, but they're not impossible to change with land use planning, and maybe something can be done by the town or the state to use eminent domain and change some of these restrictions. That's one item. The other item is every once in a while master planning topic comes up, and important things happen, and then everybody forgets about master planning. The resort, the inn, okay, wasn't built that long ago, okay, and I'm saying if there was a master plan in place, a lot of these questions maybe should have been addressed way in advance, and some of the difficulties, or if the master plan were in existence, some people that made a decision to come here and purchase the location where they purchased because of the convenience of the Harbortown tennis courts, and a lot of the other amenities, the pool and whatnot, were there. And I'm just saying, if there was master planning involved, the community lost the pool, and there's been some comments about it I've seen, at the Plantation Club, when the Plantation Club was being built. And at that point in time, there maybe would have been a different look at things if people were aware that there were going to be some changes in the Harbortown pool. And that's not that many years ago.
Right.
And a lot of people on the boards, were either on the boards or active, at least in the committee. So I'm just saying, number one, there's been a significant amount of lack of transparency. And it's just not, a lot of things are like hush-hush until there's an emergency, and then, the master plan this or the covenants this. A lot of us purchased our real estate through Sea Pines Realty. Sea Pines Realty is a asset of the resort. When we were here 3-4 years ago, I heard comments about, the name of our community. Is our community Sea Pines Resort, or is it Sea Pines Plantation? And I'm not bringing that up to be facetious, but it's important, and it's become more important, when you make this your permanent home, and then you see some things that happen. The telephone book addresses every other plantation as a plantation. Sea Pines is listed as a resort.
I understand.
And that is a little bit distressing, okay?
If I may address just a few of those, from a transparency standpoint, CSA board meetings are open to our property owners. ASPO board meetings are open to our property owners. CSA does our best job to communicate in terms of getting information out to our property owners. But the items and the locations that you're speaking of, some of them are actually owned and operated by the resort, and that's their property. So.
Okay, but what I'm saying is a lot of this isn't divulged at the time. I know in certain, states other than maybe South Carolina, if certain things were brought to the potential buyer of the real estate before the closing, okay, the decisions might have been made not to locate here.
That makes perfect sense.
And-
I can't tell you what's going to happen in 5 years from now, but.
But what I'm saying is, if you purchase your real estate through an agency of the resort, okay, and obviously these things were known by the agent, was there a reason why it wasn't disclosed?
I understand your concern, and it's certainly been heard
No,
by
no,
the folks from the
but
resort.
I mean, this might have even been prior to that time.
Right.
That's one of my comments.
Right.
Okay?
Other questions?
The other comment is we've had the agenda. I've been to other meetings and we had copies of the agenda, presented here. We had 2 speakers that weren't on the agenda. It's an important meeting and there's another meeting coming up.
Yes, sir.
There were people that spoke that weren't on the agenda that spoke longer than people that were on the agenda. Okay? Another comment is, it certainly seems significantly more overcrowded than it was several years ago.
Do you mean the meeting or
No,
the
no,
community?
the community.
Okay.
The community.
Both, which is great,
Yeah,
the first
and-
one's great, the
and
second one.
I don't know if the master plan about Harbortown was known. I liked it when it was a little bit less crowded. Okay, that's all.
Thank you for your comments. Other questions? We'll go here to Don. Good morning, Don.
Don Hayna. I have 2 curiosity detail questions.
Yes, sir.
The first for Mark, I guess, who might know, is how many responses were there to the CSA survey? Roughly.
I think it was upwards of 1,800.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, and a quick one for David. The harvest action to go on in the forest preserve, will that marketable timber turn into lumber or some other purpose?
It will. There will be some proceeds from the sale. All of those proceeds, and I failed to mention this earlier, the majority of the harvestable areas, the upland pine areas, are owned by the resort. And any of the proceeds, they've agreed that any of the proceeds from the sale will go directly back to the Forest Preserve Foundation to help facilitate that second step or that follow-up cleanup process. Any proceeds, and it's not being done for economic motivations, it's being done to restore it and to do the damage that the storm created. It will only offset. We anticipate spending much more on cleanup than will be generated from the sale, but it is going to be sold.
Thank you.
And just as a quick reminder, more information will be forthcoming. That information was just given to me this morning and to David about 12 hours ago. So information about the project in Forest Preserve regarding the salvage timber harvest will be presented to the community as well. Other questions? We have one up here, so if I can get one to Rosemary, and then I'll get one over here.
I
Jean.
just have a comment to the gentleman who was talking about his real estate company when he bought the house here. I came here because I loved that it was a resort and a residential area. I think it's just the best of all worlds. When I first came, I didn't know a soul here. I'd go out in the paths or the beach and everyone would say hello, and I'd think, my God, this is so great. Everyone's so happy. And, it makes our life here reasonable because we have all the tourism. And, it's a wonderful feeling to be in this community. I would never want to be in Wexford or Long Cove. It's completely different there. And our community is open to both. And I think that makes it very special. And I'm just very happy to be here. And I think the realtors are all very open, about this. I don't know how you could buy here and not know, that there's a resort here, and we should be proud of it. So,
Thank you,
thank you.
Rosemary. We had a question up here, Jean, so if we can get the fella in the ball cap. Good morning.
Good morning. I just wanted to ask that Mr. Birdwell, if he would just elaborate on the idea the gentleman here, Patrick, asked about going about changing the covenants, and then we had a response that it seems like there's very strict language around whether or not there's a mechanism, but can anything be changed if there's mutual agreement across parties to create a mechanism and carve out some acreage to take care of what you want to take care of?
That's certainly been my thought too, and we were thinking that we possibly, if we do some additional planning, we show how we could fit it into the Racket Club into a small corner of the Forest Preserve that wouldn't impact anybody too much. That possibly we could get the CSA board, the ASPO board, and maybe even the Forest Preserve Foundation to agree to doing that. And that's still a possibility. You run the risk that that there's still a group of property owners that wouldn't support that, and if we haven't been able to effectively really change the covenants, then we may be on shaky ground with the legally, and do we want to invest? It's probably going to be about a $7 million investment to build a first-class racket club. So do we want to invest $7 million on shaky ground with the change to the covenant? That's really the key question. And we really haven't even tried to talk. We haven't talked about trying to change or utilize a portion of the preserve because of the obstacles that we have with the covenants.
I had one additional comment on that, and I don't want to belabor the point, but regarding, I guess, Heritage Farm would seem to be kind of an ideal location. As you said, it's part of the Forest Preserve. There's also, as I'm sure many of you are aware, in the Forest Preserve, an area that's called I believe the Wildflower Field, which was leveled, kind of tabletop level. I think it was intended to be a runway at some point, which would seem to be an ideal location for Heritage Farm. Certainly gardening would be more harmonious within the Forest Preserve than tennis courts, and then the racket club could be in a more general area. Just a thought or comment.
That's been reviewed too, and was discussed a while ago. Of course, there are people that enjoy and love the wildflower field, so we'll have to be concerned about those that enjoy that. But there's a lot of use of the gardening, and there's people that are there on their own. There are people, it's been pointed out that there are a lot of women there that are there to do their gardening and are on their own. And right now, there's a lot of comfort in the fact that there's a lot of activity around, and there was concern about moving it into the Forest Preserve, and that you'd be possibly the only person that would be there working in the garden at the time. And not that we have a lot of crime in our community, but it would be different than being in a garden that's open and available, and also it's not as accessible. Not everybody wants to drive through. And, on some days where we've had a lot of rain, the road isn't as good into the Forest Preserve. So there were some obstacles to doing that. But I think it goes back to when Carrie Kelly was here. We had discussed the possibility of moving the gardening into that area, but at the same time preserving the 1.5 acres for the wildflower field, and trying to build the garden on the other side of the field. And maybe we go back and look at that again, that possibility again.
Thank you, Steve. We have some additional questions. We'll go back here to Jean, if you wouldn't mind helping this gentleman. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I've heard that there's land that's been designated as a potential golf course near the nature preserve. Is that true?
You know, the Forest Preserve has 3 different zones. There's the wildlife habitat zone, which has a set of covenants and use, and that's the 400 acres that we have leased to the Forest Preserve Foundation. There's a zone that's called the Environmental Sanitation Zone, which is basically where the water treatment plant operates and the critical service there. And then the 3rd zone is called the Outdoor Recreation Zone. And that Outdoor Recreation Zone has a number of allowed uses that we all enjoy today, but one of those uses is a potential use for a golf course. It's 200 acres. But the golf course use will require another referendum. So we don't think that, first of all, there's not a demand for another golf course, and we don't believe right now we would have support for another golf course in using that 200 acres in the forest.
Okay, well, that really wasn't my question, but it leads to this. Why can't the tennis courts be placed there?
Well, the Forest Preserve covenants that I mentioned earlier cover all the uses of the outdoor recreation zone, and unfortunately tennis was not one of those. There is an 8-acre parcel that's right in the middle of the Forest Preserve. It's accessible off of Cordillo Parkway. You see that little lane that comes in there. That would allow tennis to be used there, but our concern is, number one, it'd be buried in the middle of the Forest Preserve, so it's not visible. The access would be tough because you'd have to come off of a road off of Cordillo Parkway. And so that was the site when the Forest Preserve was laid out where the golf course clubhouse would be located if and ever the community wanted and approved another golf course. So long answer to your question as well.
Thank you, Steve. Other questions? We have one back here, Jean.
I'm going to hide behind the pole. I'm Mel Liggett.
Good morning.
Hi. I just have a quick question, and it's kind of a comment. So the hurricane came, and we had some trees maybe weakened now, and there's one in my neighbor's yard that is believed to have pine beetles on it that killed it. I was wondering if that's a problem throughout our plantation, or is it just my neighbor's tree that's going to fall on my house?
That's a great question. I'll let David Henderson, our Director of Special Projects and Operations, address that question.
Yes, pine beetles rarely kill a tree, but they are attracted to trees that are stressed or dying. So, for example, we had one recently that we removed at CSA that was clearly damaged during the storm, was weakened, predisposed, died, and the beetles showed up. So it is a common phenomenon. The concern, particularly with a larger tract like the Forest Preserve, is that if you have the right weather conditions, and even in spite of all your best efforts like salvage harvesting where you can, that pine beetles, you could have an outbreak. And so it's something that we will closely monitor. But it is normal and not unusual for pine beetles to get into a tree that's dead or dying.
Thank you, David.
Just one follow-up then. This tree could be on CSA property. It's between the backyard and the golf course, so I'll be giving you a call.
Please do. If
Thanks.
you have any concerns about CSA managed open space areas, please let us know. Contact our maintenance department. You can call us at 843-671-1343. You can email us at info@csacpines.com, or alternatively, you can stop by the office as well. So we appreciate you bringing that to our attention. Duly noted. We will make sure the resort gets that memo.
We found a good many cases of pine beetles.
David.
A lot of the trees that are bordering the golf courses, we have bands around them, as you may notice. All those bands are getting town approval to have the trees removed. We're starting to treat some of the trees at the baseline for the beetles. And but yes, it's causing disruption during the storm, and it is a reality that beetles are out there.
Thank you, Carrie. All right, well, if we have no other questions, I invite you to grab a pastry on your way out and a cup of coffee to go, and we appreciate you guys coming. We'll see you again in September. Thank you so much.
Good luck.